The courtroom buzzed with quiet whispers as the white judge glanced down, a mocking smile playing on his lips. A small black boy stood beside his mother, holding her hand tightly, his eyes steady but full of fire. The judge scoffed, "Do you really think you belong here, son?" The boy looked up and said firmly, "I'm my mom's lawyer." Silence fell like a heavy curtain. Nothing would ever be the same. "Hi, my name is Malik. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, please hit like and subscribe right now. Your support helps us shine a light on real injustice." The courtroom was packed, every seat filled with people waiting for the custody hearing to begin. The white judge sat at the bench, a smug grin playing on his lips as he scanned the crowded room. Whispering lawyers adjusted their ties, exchanging quiet comments while stealing glances at the small black boy standing beside his mother. The boy's hand trembled slightly as he gripped his mother's fingers, but his eyes were steady and determined. The air was thick with tension, the unspoken weight of history pressing down on everyone present. As the hearing began, the judge's eyes narrowed when the boy cleared his throat. The lawyers shifted uncomfortably, unsure how to respond to the presence of such a young child in a courtroom dominated by adults. A smirk crossed the judge's face as he leaned forward and spoke in a tone dripping with condescension. "Do you really think you belong here, son?" he asked, his voice loud enough for the entire room to hear. Some in the audience chuckled quietly, underestimating the boy's resolve. The boy took a deep breath and looked directly at the judge. His voice was calm but unwavering as he declared, "I'm my mom's lawyer." The room fell silent. Gasps echoed from the spectators. The judge's smile faltered as the weight of those words settled heavily in the air. For a moment, the courtroom seemed frozen in time, the racial divide between the powerful and the powerless laid bare. Whispers ceased as the boy opened a small notebook, ready to prove that he was more than just a child. The judge, the lawyers, and the audience all watched in stunned silence, realizing that this was not just a custody hearing. It was a battle against injustice. The young boy's courage lit a spark that would challenge the courtroom's old ways, forcing everyone to face uncomfortable truths about race, power, and the fight for justice. This moment marked the beginning of a story that would shake the foundations of the legal system and inspire thousands across the USA, UK, and Canada. It was a powerful reminder that age, race, and status could not silence the voice of truth. The early morning sun cast long shadows over the small apartment where the boy and his mother lived. The worn kitchen table was cluttered with bills and schoolbooks, a silent testimony to the long hours the mother worked to provide for her son. Despite the exhaustion etched on her face, she moved with quiet determination, preparing breakfast and packing a simple lunch for her boy. Each day was a struggle, but her love and hope for a better future never wavered. At school, the boy faced challenges that went beyond lessons and tests. Teachers often underestimated him, their low expectations a reflection of the racial biases that ran deep in the system. Classmates whispered and pointed, making him feel isolated in a world that seemed designed to hold him back. Yet, he carried himself with quiet pride, fueled by the strength of his mother's sacrifices and his own dreams of justice. Their neighborhood was a patchwork of contrasting lives. On one side, well-kept houses and manicured lawns. On the other, aging buildings and streets marked by neglect. The boy knew these divisions well. He understood that his family's struggles were not just personal but part of a larger pattern of inequality that affected communities like his across the country. His mother juggled 2 jobs, a night shift at the hospital and a daytime cleaning position, leaving her little time to rest. But she never missed a chance to encourage her son, reminding him that education was his path to freedom. Her tired hands often clenched in silent prayer, hoping the justice system would one day recognize their worth and fight alongside them, not against them. Meanwhile, the boy spent hours in the local library, poring over books and legal codes. With the help of a kind librarian who noticed his determination, he began to understand the rules that governed the courtroom he would soon enter. He wasn't just preparing for a fight. He was preparing to claim his voice in a world that tried to silence him. In stark contrast to their humble life stood the boy's father, a wealthy man whose rare appearances were marked by empty promises and costly gifts. The father's world was one of privilege and influence, far removed from the struggles of his son and mother. Yet, it was this same man who now sought full custody, motivated not by love but by control and access to a hidden inheritance. As the custody battle loomed, the boy's mother felt the weight of uncertainty. She feared the loss of her son, not just to the courts but to a system steeped in racial prejudice. But she also believed in her boy's strength, in his courage to stand up and speak truth to power. Their story was more than a family dispute. It was a reflection of the countless black families navigating a system that often failed to protect them. It was about resilience in the face of injustice, hope where there seemed none, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her son. This quiet life of struggle and determination set the stage for a courtroom showdown that would challenge everything the boy and his mother had endured. It was a story rooted in real American neighborhoods, schools, and courts. A story that many in the USA, UK, and Canada would soon come to know and rally behind. The courtroom was a battleground where privilege clashed with perseverance. The boy's father arrived with his team of expensive lawyers, each carefully rehearsed to paint the mother as unfit, their words laced with subtle, and sometimes blatant, racial undertones. They questioned her ability to provide a stable home, citing her long work hours and modest income as reasons she could not raise the child properly. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, the atmosphere heavy with judgment and prejudice. The father's legal team wielded their status and wealth like weapons, expecting to overwhelm the boy and his mother with cold, calculated arguments. They highlighted their client's financial resources, promising better educational opportunities and social connections. Their message was clear. The boy's future would be brighter under their protection, away from the hardships of his current life. Yet beneath the polished speeches lay a harsher truth. The father's motives were far from noble. The boy sat silently beside his mother, absorbing the attacks on their family with a growing fire inside. He knew these accusations were not just about custody. They were about race and power, about who society deemed worthy. The subtle racism woven through the father's arguments stung deeply, but the boy refused to show weakness. Instead, he prepared himself for the moment when he would speak, ready to fight with facts and courage. As the father's lawyers spoke, the boy recalled the hours spent in the library, the notes carefully gathered, the laws and records he had studied. He was not just a child. He was a defender of his family's dignity and rights. His mother's sacrifices had taught him resilience, and now it was time to prove that love and truth could stand against wealth and prejudice. The judge listened intently, occasionally nodding at points made by the father's side, but his expression remained unreadable. The courtroom seemed to lean toward the familiar narrative of money and influence dictating outcomes. But the boy's presence challenged that assumption, a silent reminder that justice should not be reserved for the privileged. When it was his turn, the boy stood tall, his voice steady and clear. He presented evidence that contradicted the father's claims, revealing financial documents and records that exposed hidden motives. He spoke of the trust fund set up not for his benefit, but as a tool to control and manipulate. His words struck chords of truth that echoed beyond the courtroom walls. The atmosphere shifted. Whispers turned to murmurs of disbelief as the boy dismantled the carefully constructed facade of his father's legal team. The mother watched with pride and hope, knowing that her son's bravery was a beacon in their darkest hour. The battle was far from over, but the power dynamics were beginning to tilt. This part of the story exposed the raw reality of racial and economic injustice within the legal system, a system that often favors wealth over fairness, prejudice over truth. Yet it also highlighted the boy's determination to rewrite the narrative, to claim a future where his voice could not be ignored. In the eyes of the audience, the boy was no longer just a child. He was a symbol of resistance and hope, a living challenge to the inequalities embedded deep within society. His fight was not just for custody, but for dignity, respect, and justice, themes that resonate deeply across the USA, UK, and Canada. If you're still watching, drop a comment below. What would you do in this situation? And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that matter. The boy's moment had arrived. With a steady hand, he opened his worn notebook and began to lay out his case. Every word was measured, every fact supported by documents he had meticulously gathered. The courtroom, once filled with murmurs and skepticism, now hung on his every sentence. He revealed how his father's intentions were far from the caring image painted by the polished lawyers. The trust fund, he explained, was not a gesture of love but a calculated tool designed to control him and his mother. He shared details of lawsuits and financial troubles his father had tried to conceal, proof that the pursuit of custody was driven by greed, not concern. As he spoke, the judge's smirk faded, replaced by a look of growing concern. The lawyers, once confident, now exchanged worried glances. The power dynamics in the courtroom were shifting rapidly, and it was clear the boy's evidence had shaken the foundation of the case. The boy recounted how he had spent hours in the local library, aided by a compassionate librarian who taught him how to access public records and legal databases. This knowledge had armed him with the tools to fight back, to stand equal in a battle where he had been dismissed as just a child. He told the courtroom about the impact of his mother's tireless work, her sacrifices that went beyond the surface to build a loving and stable home. He contrasted this with his father's sporadic appearances, marked by expensive gifts but empty promises. The courtroom was captivated, not by money or influence, but by the boy's courage and clarity. The judge leaned forward, his attention fully captured. Questions came, probing the boy's claims and the documents he presented. With calm precision, the boy answered each, never faltering. His confidence grew with every moment, a stark contrast to the father's team, who now seemed increasingly defensive. Behind the scenes, whispers spread among the audience. This was no ordinary custody battle. It was a story about truth standing against power, about a child who refused to be silenced. The racial undertones of the case became undeniable, making the boy's victory a symbol far beyond one family. The boy's presentation marked a turning point. The courtroom that had once laughed was now silent, the weight of his words pressing heavily on everyone present. It was a clear message that privilege and prejudice would not always win. This part of the story showed how knowledge and bravery could turn the tide in a system skewed against those without power. It highlighted the importance of having a voice, especially for those too often ignored or underestimated. Across cities in the USA, UK, and Canada, this moment resonated deeply. It was a call to action, a reminder that justice must be fought for, and that sometimes the smallest voices can make the biggest impact. Or the importance of exposing corruption and bias in the legal system and the power of individuals to make a difference. It prepared the stage for the pivotal moments that would follow, where justice would finally begin to take shape. The courtroom atmosphere grew tense as the boy continued to expose the deeper flaws in the system. He pointed out how public records and legal loopholes were often manipulated by those with wealth and influence, making it nearly impossible for families like his to get a fair hearing. With every piece of evidence he presented, the reality of racial and economic injustice became clearer to everyone in the room. He described the subtle ways the legal process favored the privileged, how judges and lawyers could be swayed by money, and how black families were frequently dismissed or judged harshly. The boy's voice carried not just his own story, but the stories of countless others who faced similar battles across the USA, UK, and Canada. His words forced the courtroom to confront uncomfortable truths about prejudice woven into the very fabric of the justice system. The boy's father and his lawyers struggled to counter the mounting evidence. Their confident facade cracked as documents and testimonies revealed a pattern of exploitation and neglect. The father's claims of genuine concern for his son rang hollow against the boy's clear and detailed presentation. The judge's demeanor shifted from amused skepticism to serious contemplation. The boy's story gained momentum as he shared the support he received from the local librarian, who had become an unexpected ally in his fight for justice. This partnership symbolized hope, that knowledge and community support could empower those who were often silenced. The courtroom listeners saw a young boy not only defending his family but challenging a system that often turned a blind eye to racism and corruption. Throughout the hearing, the boy remained composed, demonstrating maturity beyond his years. His ability to navigate complex legal concepts and present them simply impressed even the most seasoned legal professionals in the room. It was a testament to his determination and the strength of his bond with his mother. This part of the story highlighted the institutional pressures that families like theirs face. It revealed how the justice system, while promising fairness, sometimes perpetuated inequality through subtle bias and economic disparity. Yet, it also showed that resilience and courage could disrupt these patterns. The boy's efforts resonated far beyond the courtroom walls. His fight became a beacon for others in similar situations, inspiring conversations about racial justice, legal reform, and the need to protect vulnerable communities. Media coverage in the USA, UK, and Canada began to spotlight his case, turning it into a symbol of hope and change. As the hearing moved forward, it became evident that the courtroom drama was more than a personal battle. It was a challenge to a system entrenched in injustice. The boy's voice echoed the demand for real change, calling on society to recognize and rectify the inequalities faced by Black families. This section underscored. The judge's gavel struck the bench, signaling a moment that would change the course of the custody battle. After hearing the boy's detailed presentation and reviewing the overwhelming evidence, the judge denied the father's request for full custody. The courtroom, once filled with tension and doubt, now held a quiet sense of relief and vindication. The ruling was not just a personal victory for the boy and his mother. It was a statement against the systemic injustices that had plagued their family and many others. The judge ordered a full investigation into the father's financial dealings and the suspicious trust fund, signaling that corruption and greed would not be tolerated. For the first time, the legal system was forced to confront its own flaws and the role race and privilege played in its decisions. The mother's eyes filled with tears as she embraced her son, proud of his courage and resilience. Her sacrifices, long overlooked, were finally acknowledged in the courtroom and beyond. The community began to rally around them, inspired by their story of strength and justice. Meanwhile, the father's world unraveled. The investigation revealed a web of deceit and exploitation, leading to the collapse of his business empire and public disgrace. His attempts to use his wealth and influence to manipulate the system had failed. The boy's steadfast determination had turned the tables, exposing the truth and holding the powerful accountable. This part of the story showcased the emotional payoff of their struggle. It emphasized that justice, though often delayed, could be achieved through courage and persistence. The victory was bittersweet, a reminder of the battles still to come but a celebration of a hard-fought win. Across the USA, UK, and Canada, the boy's story spread like wildfire. Media outlets covered the courtroom drama, highlighting the racial and economic issues at its core. His bravery sparked conversations about legal reform and the importance of giving a voice to those often ignored by the system. The mother's promotion at work and the scholarships established in the boy's name symbolized hope and progress. Their story became a beacon for families facing similar challenges, proving that even the smallest voices could make a powerful impact. This chapter in their journey was a testament to the resilience of Black families navigating a system stacked against them. It was a call to action for communities and institutions to recognize and address the deep-rooted inequalities that persist. The courtroom victory was not just about custody. It was about reclaiming dignity, respect, and justice. It marked a turning point that inspired change and strengthened the bonds of family and community. As the boy and his mother looked toward the future, Their hearts were filled with hope. They had faced the storm and emerged stronger, ready to continue the fight for fairness and equality. Their story was a powerful reminder that justice is possible when courage meets truth, and that change begins with standing up against injustice, no matter how daunting the challenge. Years later, the boy stood before a crowd much larger than that courtroom, a symbol of hope and resilience for thousands across the USA, UK, and Canada. What had begun as a personal fight for custody had grown into a movement, inspiring others to raise their voices against injustice. His journey from a trembling child to a confident advocate was a testament to the power of determination and love. His mother watched from the audience, pride shining in her eyes. The hardships they endured, the long nights, the whispered doubts, the battles in court, had paved the way for something greater than either of them could have imagined. She had become a respected community leader, fighting alongside her son to ensure that no child's voice would ever be ignored again. The boy's story was now taught in schools and discussed in legal circles. His efforts led to new laws that strengthened protections for children in custody disputes, particularly those from marginalized communities. The trust fund that once threatened to divide his family had instead become a source of opportunity, funding scholarships and legal aid programs for families facing similar struggles. Despite the recognition and success, the boy remained humble, always remembering the journey that brought him here. He spoke passionately about the importance of speaking out, encouraging young people everywhere to believe in their power to affect change. "Your voice matters," he would say. "No matter how small you feel, you have the strength to make a difference." Their story continued to inspire, a beacon in the ongoing fight against systemic racism and inequality. It reminded the world that justice was not just a concept but a living, breathing goal worth fighting for every day. The courtroom victory was just the beginning, a catalyst for a lifetime dedicated to truth and fairness. As the boy and his mother walked hand in hand into the future, they knew the road ahead would still have challenges. But they faced it with unwavering hope and the knowledge that their courage had already changed countless lives. Their legacy was one of resilience, love, and the unbreakable bond of family, a legacy that would echo through generations and across borders. It was proof that even in the face of deep injustice, the human spirit could triumph. This was more than a story of a custody battle. It was a story of empowerment, justice, and the enduring strength found in standing up for what is right. It was a story that would continue to inspire hearts and minds, reminding us all that change begins with the courage to speak. If you believe in second chances and breaking barriers, share this story. To viewers in the USA, UK, and Canada, your voice matters. Together, we can change the world.